Okay, well today I'm going to show you how to complete the practice session 1 or the practice exam 1. Okay, so inside your folders you should have the practice exam PDF file, and you should have the file that you're going to need to complete the database task, which is a Microsoft Excel, separated value file, a CSV file. So let's open the practice database exam. We're going to start off on page 5. This is an exam that you would normally get, but we've skipped the first 3 pages because we're concentrating on the database. The database says, the exam paper said, using suitable database package, import the file site CSV. Now, if I was just to try to open site CSV, it would open in Microsoft Excel. That's not a database package that we use. We have to import it into a database that we're creating within our folders. So I'm going to create a database inside my folder called sites. Once I've created this, I'm going to open it, enable content, and the first thing I need to do, because it's external data and it's a text file, don't press the Excel button because it's not an Excel file. It is just associated with Excel, but it is a comma-separated value file, which is a text file. I'm click on the text file, browse to where the file is that I need to open. It's in my St. Paul's in there, and there is sites, and we can see there it is a comma-separated value file. Click on sites here and then just click OK. We have a number of options now. When we go back to this, it tells us that we need to assign the following data types to the fields. Okay, so when we click next, we'll have a look at this first. We know that it's called a comma-separated value file, so we choose a delimiter, which is what we're going to separate each piece of data, and in this case it is a comma. Now when we have a look at the data underneath here, we can see that the top row contains the field header names. So if we select that, we then see it becomes separated. If we don't, and we click next, we can see that it just says field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we click first row contains field names and click next, we'll see that it automatically put the field names. Okay, so let's go back to this for a second. If we click on advanced, we can then select the data types that's required in the exam. So code should be text. So I'll just try to window this and run it alongside. So code should equal text. Yep. Reference is a long integer or a number. Country is text. Current area is numeric or integer. Long integer, numeric or integer. The only thing that we need to change is this, the boolean, which is a logical. So we know that the boolean and logical are yes or no. So that's the only thing that we have to do for the data types. Now remember, here in Spain, the decimal symbol is a comma. But because we're importing a file from England, used in the Cambridge CIE exams, we have to change the decimal symbol to a full stop. And then click OK. If not, you will receive an error message at the end saying that it's not possible to import because of your delimiter, your text delimiter being the same as your decimal delimiter. Next. Now we could try to choose our own primary key. Now on first observation, you will see that the reference is 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 14. But when we take a closer inspection and have a look down, we'll see that it starts again round here. Now we cannot have in a primary key a number that repeats, because each record has to have a field which uniquely identifies each record. So we can't have number 1 here and number 1 further up. So we will let Access choose our own primary key, and we will just leave it as ID. We will click Next, import the table. Does it tell us what table to save it as? Inside here, it says print a screenshot showing that the field names and the data types used. Make sure that your name, sent number and CAN number are included on this printout. It doesn't say that we save it as anything but the imported field name, imported CSV file, sorry. So I'm just going to leave it as sites and click Finish. We don't import the steps, we just click Close. There's all of our data there. Now when we've got owned here, this should actually say yes or no and not 0 and 1. So if we click on Home and Design View, we click on Owned and we change the format to yes or no. Then click on Save and then click back on the normal view. You will now see that the values inside Owned are now yes or no. We'll go back to this. And the next thing it says, after you printed your screenshots, and you should all know how to print your screenshots by using Imprimir Pantalla and then pasting it into Word. So the next thing, number 41, it says insert data in the following 3 records. Well, that shouldn't be that difficult. We should all know how to import or insert this data into the records. So I'm going to do the same as I did before and minimize the 2 windows. I'm going to move down to the bottom so I can add the new records. Okay. So the first one is OC. So we don't put anything in the ID because the ID is an auto number. The ID is an auto number because we cannot make a mistake entering 2 numbers that's the same. So I'm going to go ahead and continue entering the 3 records it's asked us to enter. So the first one is OC, and you'd say that number 75 has automatically appeared. We don't have to put it in. Number 1, the country is Australia. The current area is 330. The potential area is 790. And in here we put yes. The reason why it says no at first is because that's a default value. Okay, try to keep the same formatting. So if the first letter is a capital and the second and third letter are lowercase, then we're going to, as convention, we're going to try to keep the same, even though sometimes it doesn't make any significance if it is, but it just looks neater. The next record, OC, you'll see 76 has automatically been put in. Number 2, Australia. And to save time, we can copy and paste this as we go along. OC, and that's number 3. Make sure you get the right data in. That's 0, that one's 0, that one's 7420. No, so we don't touch that. And then 550. And then we click in here and then type yes. There's our 3 records entered. Okay, what does it say next? Check your data for entry errors. So Australia, make sure Australia is spelled right, and then just check that you've put the data into the 3 new records correctly. Okay. Whenever it asks you to produce a report, you have to create a query beforehand. So just read through what it asks you to do first, and then you'll get an understanding of what it is that you're going to create the query on. So it has a page set the orientation to port rate. You do that in the actual report. Fits on a single page. Again, you do that in reports. Shows only the sites where the code OC or AS. Well, we can do that in the query. Contains a new field called growth, which is calculated at runtime. This field will calculate the potential area minus the current area. Again, this is done in the query. Show only the fields code, country, current area, potential area and growth and their labels in full. To show the labels in full, we would do that in the report when we go into design view. But to only show those fields, we can either do it in the query, or we can do it before we produce a report in the report wizard. Sorted data ascending this again can be done in the report wizard and includes the heading Far East Sites. Now if we name our report Far East Sites, that will automatically be the heading at the top and has your name in the right in the footer. We can do that in the design. So first of all, we need to create our query. So we're going to save that and then we can close it. Inside here we can click on the drop down box and right click. No, not in this one, sorry. Right click, no, create query. So we're going to use a query wizard and we just click simple query OK, and we only have one thing to choose from, which is the table sites. So we haven't got any other tables or any other queries. In here it states that we need only show the fields code, country, current area, potential area and growth. Well, if we put everything across and we just ignore that for a second, we put them all across and then we call the query the same as what we're going to call the report. This will be a lot better for us later on. Far East Sites, because the report will be called Far East Sites. Okay, we're going to modify the query and finish. We're not going to use the property sheet for now. I'll change that back to custom, and we can see that we have the sites there and the Far East query. If we have a look at this, it says shows only the sites where the code is O, C or AS. Well, under the code we put OC and then just push space, because if we don't push space it will change it to oct, and then underneath here AS and then push space again, and that's just going to look for those two in this field. So it will only return any record where code equals OC or equals AS, and that's exactly what it's asking us to do, OC or AS. We can run the query to make sure it works. This is a good method of testing as you go along, instead of creating the query at the end and then finding that it hasn't worked. If I click on view again, click on the design view, click on my exam, and it says contains a new field called growth, which is calculated at runtime. This field will calculate the potential area minus the current area. Okay, so in here we type growth. That's going to be our new field, followed by a colon. Now when we first do a calculation, we make sure that we put the parenthesis, which is a bracket. So we open brackets, and then each field name that we're going to use, it has to be in square brackets. So on this we have potential area minus current area. So we put the square brackets. I have to change mine to Spanish. Put the square brackets, and we make sure that you type the field name correctly or it isn't going to work. Potential area exactly the way it says in there, and then we close the brackets. We need to minus that by open the square brackets again, and we're going to put in potential area minus the current area. So we put current area, and then we close the brackets. Okay, we also have to close the parenthesis, so we're going to close those as well. I can expand this so you can see exactly what I've typed in there. So we've got the growth, and again I've spelt that wrong. We've got the growth followed by the colon, open brackets, potential area, which is spelt the same as the field, minus the current area, which is spelt exactly the same as the field. If I run that now, I have a new field here, which is that field minus that field. I could, if I want, add them together or times them together, and then we would have the calculation at the end. Well, we're doing exactly what the exam says. That's just an example of what we can do. Okay, let's see what else the exam says. This field will calculate potential error. That's exactly what we've just done. Shows only the fields code, country, current area and potential area. Okay, so as I said before, we can do this in here. So we don't need ID, we need code, we don't need reference. So when we uncheck or check these and run it, you will see that those fields do not appear. Let's have a look what else we have to include. Code, country, current area, potential area and growth with their labels in full. Is growth selected? Yes. Okay. Sort the data into ascending order of growth with the naught at the top. Now once we've done that, and we can save it and then we can close it. Now inside here, this is the different types of views you can have for your tables. I'm going to click on Report Wizard, and in the drop down box I'm not going to select table sites, I'm going to base it on the query. We put everything across because that's exactly what we need. Next. Next. Now it asks us to sort something in here. It asks us to sort the data into ascending order of growth. So we select growth and ascending order. Next, we just, if it says landscape, which this one doesn't, it says portrait, we would change that, but we already have portrait. Next, Far East sites, and we'll preview the report first, and that's what our report looks like. Now you can see it doesn't show all of the field headers inside the report, so we're going to tidy this up. So we can right click and then go into design view, or we could have closed print view. We could have closed the print view and then gone on to design view. So inside here we know that these codes are far too big. We can select them both together and then change the size. The country as well seems to be far too big, so we can collect them both together, and because they're both selected I can move them both at the same time. Now the rent area, it isn't showing all of, or the current area, it isn't showing all of the data. So if I select them both together, I can then increase it so we can see them both. I can move that across. This again, select the two of them, potential area isn't shown. I can now move those across. This is far too small to show the growth. Make those big enough, or own, sorry, which is yes or no. And the growth's at the beginning. At any point, if it says that it has to be in a certain order, you can rearrange them the way they're supposed to be. Okay, and the last thing we have to do is put our name in the footer. Let's have a look. Includes a Far East site at the top of the page. We've done that. Has your name in the right of the footer. So we're in the footer now. We have the report footer, or we have the page footer. To get the report footer, we just drag that down slightly. And watch what happens if I put our label in here and then run it. Then you see that my name is at the bottom of the report footer. It does state in the exam that every single field header should be visible. You can, if you want, it's entirely up to you, you can change all of these so they are centered. Click on home, click on centered, so it tidies it up a little bit better than it was before. So we click on view now, we'll see them all in the center and running all the way down. Okay, save and print this report. So that's the first part that we've successfully managed to do. Okay.